Thank you. Thanks a lot. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me here. I'm very happy to see that Lean Startup is moving to Amsterdam, right? And we see, whenever you see, when I was in San Francisco, I was wishing that it would come one day here to Europe. And I think it's not an accident that it's happening here in Amsterdam. When you look at Zoku, for instance, this is precisely the spirit which you have in this place, in this country, open to the world, open to new things. And this country has a history of now conquering the world, I would say. And I think there's a lot to be done here. So I think not an accident that Lean Startup is here, and I wish it's going to stay for very long. What I'm going to tell you today is also very much in line with what Alex was saying, and trying to get some practical implications of the points he made about ambidextrous. I think this is what we are certainly trying to do. The fights, he was showing between the CTO, the CEO, and all those guys. I think we are living in this world, and I think many of you maybe also. So how do we tackle them? Also writing the checkbook. I'm in charge of one of the checkbook of 325 million. So I think, well, you get many friends, but also many enemies at one point when you start saying no, right? So I want to bring you to this, telling you why we are doing this, what we are effectively doing to bring a bank, sorry for that very bad word for many people, but I think we still like it, and you like it or not, I think banks are important for us all, and how we're doing this, right? So eventually, what I want to make, the point I want to make is that innovation doesn't come by accident. It's a very well thought process. It's something you need to look for, to fight for, and which is an extensive work, right? It's a very exciting work, but I think it's an extensive work. So where do we start from? And this is something, sorry for the guys who have heard this for a couple of times, but I think this is a story which is what we believe for many years now, is that nobody likes banking, of course, but banking is just like oxygen. So you breathe in every single minute, but you don't think of it, right? But the moment you stop for 30 seconds, then suddenly you say, I might have a problem. And it's just about banking. It's the same thing. You hate banks. You don't want to bank. You don't want to wake up in the morning going to the bank. But, your mortgage has been financed. Your savings are somewhere. You're paying your clothes in some way, right? If you stop that, your life become a bit more complicated. And this is what we need to understand and learn as banks, is moving from the arrogance of saying, well, you want to have access to your money? It's 4 o'clock on Friday. Yeah, maybe come back on Monday, right? From that path to what is now happening, where consumers, every one of us, is taking back control on its own money, right? Everyone is empowered. The world has changed from a world where we were dependent on banks, but now, less and less. And the power shift is coming. Like you book your travel, right? You don't go to a travel agent. And I think finance is going through that path. And we need to understand that, just to go back to the roots of the service industry, right? We are in service industry, right? And service means service, right? So we have to build this in our genes. We have to build this in our DNA, and we have to fight every single day to make this a differentiation point, not the product. So this is where we come from. We have a very strong belief in this, and this is leading whatever we've been doing in this company with 52,000 people, 37 million customers, and operating in 40 different countries. So we have built this, and this is ING's strategy in one slide, okay? We try to have it, and this is the same for the last 4 years, hasn't changed. One slide to summarize what we want to do. We want to empower customers to not only to get control of what they of their life, but to be a step ahead in their life, just with it in business or in their private life. This is what we're really aiming for. And just to do this, we think that things should be clear, easy, we should deliver what we promise. Those are things with everybody would think this is basic. All banks are saying this, all companies are saying this, but there's, the Italians say, there is the sea between what saying things and doing things. There's a sea in the middle. And this is also here. Making a one slide is easy. I think it takes half an hour, but just getting executed to have 37 million customers experiencing it is another challenge. So to do this, we have put innovation at the core of our strategy. 4 priorities. Earning the primary customer relation, certainly important, but if you look at this blue box, you see 2 of the 4 priorities, which are increasing the pace of innovation. We need to innovate and fast, and I think innovation is maybe not a new word, but it has been the key differentiating and success factors of all companies over time, right? So we're making it a bit bigger now, but I think it's always because you innovate that you can grow. And also thinking beyond banking. You know, we're a bank, we're a boring something, but we think we have more assets than the one which are on our balance sheet, right? Having a brand, having trust from customers, having 37 million customers. Those are things, and also our employees and the experience we have for years in banking in different countries is helping us a lot. So how do we exploit this to go one step further ourselves? What is innovation for us? Having an idea is a great thing, but it's not that. Implementing that idea is we're getting closer to that. But if it's just implementing an idea which is totally not relevant to a customer, then you're just wasting time and energy, right? If you want to be the first, maybe an outdated example, but the first bank on the Apple Watch, it's very good for the ego of the product manager, right? So he can say, yeah, guys, look at our bank, we're the first one, but nobody has an iWatch or an Apple Watch, and nobody is really waiting just to get his salary, screened in the underground while he's traveling. I think this is not really something we want. So implementing things is important, but is it relevant and impactful for customers is something which should be leading for us. So customers at the center, making their life easier, but also solving their problems. We should not be focusing ourselves on solving our own problems, but it's just like we are there to solve customer problems in a service industry. So this is the first point is about customer. The second one is culture, and the third one is certainly having an open ecosystem and connecting with the rest of the world. And I elaborate a bit on this. On the customer side, I'll just give you maybe one concrete example. We are partnering with an American company called Cabbage. Cabbage is a small business lending platform. And we have partnered with them in Spain to deliver this solution. And what it does today, for a small business, up to 100,000 euro are being granted in less than 5 minutes on their account, right? So you just stay, you have your small business, you go online, you give access to your banking codes of the different banks. We have some intelligence behind, which is scoring you, and in a couple of minutes, you get the approval about your loan, right? Up to 100,000 euro. And just this is an example on solving a customer problem. Again, nobody, if you run a small business, you don't want to go to the bank, you don't want to talk to the banker, you don't want to go in your cupboard and say, okay, my last 2 balance sheet of the last 2 years, oh yeah, now I need my husband also to come and sign with me the documents and say, okay, sorry, but Amsterdam we'll discuss because we're here in Utrecht and I do not have the power to decide, right? So this is not what you want. You want to be busy with your customers in your business. And just an example of how we look at it and how we think it's solving customer problems. Going to culture. eventually it's all about culture, okay? So it's not about digitalization, it's not about innovation, it's about culture. And when I say it's about culture, it's about people. And the paradox is, the more we digitize, the more people, human beings, relationships are important. Those are absolutely key. If you design a process, if you design an experiment, someone is always behind it. There's always someone behind the bits, always someone, right? When you design a process, what you ask a customer, how you design the process, is made by people who have values, who think about what is important, what is not important. You can design the same process and eventually trying to get 20 euros from your customers in a sneaky way without him seeing it, or you can tell him in a transparent way, if you click here, it will cost you 10 euros. It's a choice. And the more we're doing this, the more people are relevant. And it's not something you declare. It's not something you start with and say, okay, now, board meeting, Monday morning, we'll be an innovating company because the shareholders like that, because by doing this, employees will be excited to work more. No, it's not the case. I think it's something you need to live genuinely every single day. And you can't cheat, you can't cheat. The story you're telling outside is the same as the one you're telling inside. It's just the same story. You can't cheat to your employees, and you cannot convince people by PowerPoints, right? You need to convince people by facts. What does it change for me in my daily life? So this is an absolutely key element in innovating, is building culture. Well, sometimes we still have some parts of arrogance. So we're saying that we're 20 years old. FinTech with ING Direct was launched 20 years ago, disrupting the banking model. We say, branch is over. It was 20 years ago, right? So we started in all different countries and disrupted ourselves. And we still have those genes. The people who have done this the last 20 years are there. They're just building our new processes. And they went through this. It's experience, it's time. It's not something you declare. So culture, and the third C of our innovation is connecting. Again, we thought we had the best engineers, we had the best people, we had the best marketing budget, so just like we could do things. So the world has changed, right? So there is more knowledge outside a bank or a company than there is inside. So how do we tap into the knowledge which is there? How do we connect with the external ecosystem just to leverage on it? Because we're big, but we're very, very, very small. Right? So it's going back to humility. Humility is the balance between being as big as you think you can be, so believing in yourself, you're looking at your assets, but also being as little as you can also be, just not to be arrogant or overconfident. And we need to live in this life, going outside. So we're connecting to companies. I'll come back in a minute on some concrete figures and example on it. So how do we then practically innovate? Frankly, we don't know what the future will be, okay? So this is something we have to admit. We don't know, so we're trying hundreds of things. And we're trying to fail fast, which everybody says we fail fast, but I think we do not always fail fast, I can tell you. Sometimes it takes 1 or 1.5 years just to understand that we failed 6 months ago, but we're learning. I say, those are things, not everything is pinky, but we go from the whole funnel. That's a very traditional way, going from exploration, transforming our people. So we have deployed our own innovation methodology, which we call PACE. And PACE is a mix of design thinking, lean startup, and agile. So we have combined this. And today we have trained more than 3,000 people in the organization with the intention to spend 75% of the change budgets which we are using for innovation in this manner. Just like going through problem fits, solution fits, stopping after 6 weeks, going to experimentation with customers, asking them more than the product manager what is good for them, right? So it's a transformation story. We started 3 years ago. Now we have 3,000 people. So you imagine how long it also takes to get there. Accelerators, so we have what we call ING labs, which we have in different places, in Amsterdam, in Singapore, in London, or different places, where we also want to accelerate our own ideas. And I can give you a couple of examples of ideas which we had, like Yolt. I don't know whether you heard of Yolt. Yolt is a money management platform which is aggregating accounts. It's now live since end of May last year in the UK, and we are aggregating all customers' account in a PSD2, sorry for this word, PSD2 friendly environment. So we're connecting all banks. But this is something which we started 3 years ago, thinking about it, and it took some time, and now it's live. And it's been incubated internally. So this is also showing that we sometimes think that entrepreneurs are only available outside large corporations. I think this is not true, okay? So it's not like big companies are old-fashioned and stupid and don't know how to move, and you know, the outside world entrepreneurs know how to do it. You know, I think many fail in the entrepreneur world, and I think we have a lot of talents also inside. The question is, how do we unlock it? How do we unlock it? I think we have people. The question is, how do we create an innovation-friendly environment for people to say, okay, I want to try, I can try, I failed. My career is not over, right? On the contrary. So it's, again, going back to culture, what we're trying to do. We also partner a lot. So we have today partnerships with 140 different fintechs outside, where in all those cases we're saying they know better. Okay, it's a very hard thing to say. Okay, go to your IT guys and say, those guys, you know, they have something. We can do this also. I think this is always, every time I go to internal partners from products, market, whatever, it's just a human being thing, right? It's not an ING thing, it's just a human being. They say, well, we could do this also. And I say, yes, of course you could do this, right? The difference is that those guys have done it 2 or 3 years ago, right? And it works, right? And so why will you now spend another 1 or 2 years spending a couple of whatever hundreds of millions to build something and say, there is something, right? But it goes through a fundamental psychological process. And I think maybe lean startup is only about one thing, or innovation is just about coming into the brain of an individual, going back to psychology 1.0. And if I say, what you're doing is stupid, what is your reaction? Say, well, you're more stupid than I. So we just have those kind of reactions. And when referring to what Alex was mentioning, you know, the tensions between the guys and the innovation guys and the entrepreneurs, I think the way we're trying to solve it is that we are also in innovation at the service of the organization. You know, I have a huge responsibility, and this is how I see it. You know, I've received 325 million just to build innovation, where you know everyone in the company is looking at cost, is having a huge pressure on revenue. So I think it's a big responsibility for me to come back with value, which is given to the business, right? I'm not an aim as such, right? I'm the means to reach the aim, which is empowering the bank to deploy. And this is changing totally the mindset. You know, once you go there with the business and say, what is your problem? How can we help solving it? Then you start to have a different kind of discussion with the guys. Then you say, well, have you seen this company? They've done it, right? So you're stupid, you haven't done it. It's just like totally wrong. So this is one thing. The other one is also making sure that we are protecting the guys who are daring to go to the unknown. Okay, we live a world where we live in the coming 3 to 5 years. We know this. This is delivering our P&L, the pressure of the customer. But with innovation, we're going, you know, 5 to 10 years from now. So into places we know we don't know, but also to many places we don't know, right? So how would you give your best guys, part of your budget to go somewhere, either you're crazy or just adventurous, but I think this is not the natural tendency. So we need to help the guys to say, okay, here we put some money. If you fail, we'll compensate this, and helping them to move into this, because only by doing it will be helping, and people understand it by experiencing themselves. So this is why we have those partnerships, just to make sure that we're trying things. And once you try it, you say, okay, now it's nice, working with those guys. I'm learning a lot. And like we did with Cabbage, we have totally new scoring models. But the guy could say to the risk guys, your scoring models are old and old-fashioned, don't work. But say, no, there's something here different. And they start liking it. They say, wow, that's nice, I didn't think of it. But they can also increase in knowledge on their side. And the last one was the scale-up portfolio. So those are the internal innovation, like Yolt I was referring, which we're nurturing. And very important in what we have done so far is to protect those guys from the extremely effective immune system which we have in organizations like ours against change. So, but again, it was a large organization, so it's multiplied. But look, let's look to ourselves, individually. I like that you change, right? But I'm almost perfect, and I'm doing everything fine, and I don't want to change, right? So, but you should change, right? But not me. And we generally in this mindset. So when you have 52,000 people, the pressure is big. So we need to protect them, give them the assets of being a large company, but having them alone. So Yolt is having more than 50 people working in a separate way in the UK, a bit in Amsterdam, but just separated, right? So, and I'm trying to protect them from, when they are successful, then you start to have 15 fathers and 25 mothers, and everyone has an opinion on it, right? So the guy gets crazy. And if they're not successful, 25 people kill it. They say, I told you, doesn't make sense. How come you're spending so much money for this, right? So it's a long-term fight where you need a lot of also support. And of course, we're also doing acquisitions, because sometimes we didn't move fast enough, so we didn't change fast enough. So then we're happy also to make acquisitions to compensate what we have not done yet earlier, right? So it's a full toolbox of instruments which we can deploy depending on the needs, but always going back to what is the internal customer needing. And all people in innovation in ING have this one KPI, which is asking the questions to our internal stakeholders: did we help you to be successful? So everyone has this in these KPIs. Did we help our internal stakeholders to be successful in delivering the strategy, right? And this is, again, a mindset which we need to have. Those are the different tools, and I think you know all those tools we went through, hackathons, global boot camps. An important one is the new ways of working. So we are transforming the whole company in the way we're working, using Agile, the PACE methodology, working in squads, tribes. It's been done in the Netherlands, it's being deployed in Belgium, in Poland, but eventually the intention is that the whole organization will be working this way. And again, this is looking at psychology. I can show you slides, but until the moment I'm moving your office and I'm saying, now, those are your new friends or not, but colleagues, you have to work, and then you have to deliver something 6 weeks ago. And this is your new work environment. Until you experience this and live it, then you can change your culture, right? Then things are changing. It's not by changing a strategy on PowerPoint, but just like by also physically having an impact on everyone's life, that you suddenly realize that you have to work differently. So this is what we are implementing now also globally. PACE Academy to train everyone into the PACE methodology. We have a 25 million innovation fund for our internal IDs, which we want to nurture, and every year we have this amount available, and the 300 million of ING Ventures to take stakes in companies and also learn from them. So it's all about learning, making bets, understanding that we don't know, but giving the opportunity to the whole organization to get in movement. So if you look at all this, what my view is on key success factors, what you absolutely need to make innovation working in the company. And the first one is, of course, vision, right? If you cannot mobilize the whole organization beyond a powerful why, I think you can try, but I think it's really hard. And I think nowadays even more, we need to know why we are waking up in the morning, and it must make sense to people to wake up, to go the extra mile. So this is certainly the first point. But the second, even more important, is leadership. We have a CEO who is closer to the 50s than the 60s, and it's not a value statement, right? But it's just someone who can deliver 3 months results, because he has to. But it's also someone who can look at 10 years from now, because he expects also to be there in the coming 10 years and bring that company to the next level. So how do you combine short-term execution with long-term vision and bets which you are making? And if you do not have this in the organization, I think you can have 100 people like me, you can have 5 billion of change. Things do not happen, okay? So it's all leadership and genuine leadership, right? It's not because the stock market is asking you to innovate, it's just because you, as a human being, you genuinely believe that this is the way forward to differentiate yourself because your customer want that, right? And then it can make it happen. Step-by-step action, so it takes time, okay? So don't get too frustrated and excited. I think some might get some pills, but I think I would not recommend. But it takes a lot of energy, right? Because we're hitting walls, we're making mistakes, many people are jealous. This is just, human beings 101. But this is life of the innovator, right? So we need to accept this, and we need to get energy from this, right? Not hitting the wall, but I think just making things which everybody thinks impossible, just at least trying to make them happen. And I think you can do much, much more than what you think. Even when 100 people tell you it will never work, I think just do it step by step. Chinese say that people who move mountains start by removing small stones. And you see that when you start yourself moving a couple of stones, then a couple of people around you say, okay, I'll move them also. And then eventually you see the mountain moving. And just always taking this helicopter view, the high level, but also the small stones. And we have all 2 hands, and I think we have a work to do with our 2 hands to move those stones. Humility is again a very important one. Knowing and acknowledging that you don't know. We don't know, okay? I don't know, we don't know. And we are surrounded by people who know. Okay, they all know. I've been there for 20 years, I tell you this will never work. We all know. So use this methodology which you have to just ask question. Why? Why? How do you know? It's one of my favorite questions in this things. Whatever you ask this question to people, say, you get really to the core of the point. How do you know that customer like it? How do you know they don't like it? And you force people to go to factual evidence more than to ideas which they have in their minds. And smart failure. Yeah, failure. Well, I understand that the word is maybe prohibited, and we should not talk about failure, but I forgot the name which was mentioned. Nailings. Yeah. But it's failure. I left ING myself a couple of years ago to start my own business in the internet wave. And after 1.5 years, we just didn't agree. It was like a distribution of office supplies, right? Office depot kind of things. And it failed, it failed. I left ING, say, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be successful. And it failed. It's a failure. I learned a lot. And I moved on. But, it's a failure. Literally. You know, yeah, this is it, right? But made me stronger. But you know, it's a failure. And to conclude, yes. Eventually, it's, as I said, it's not about digitization. It's about human beings. It's about mobilizing people. You know, it's just like bringing them together, like those guys who are rowing, right? Everyone needs to row at the same time, you know. And if you're not trained, and you train a lot of time just to get this working. You need to know each other. You need to trust each other. You need to train. You need to wake up early and to work hard just to get there. And this is what we really, where we think we can make difference, is just by empowering our own people to make the difference and get the excitement of going through the finish line and winning. Right. Thank you for your attention. Happy to take some questions.
Thank you so much, Benoît.
Shall I catch the box? Or?
Yeah, you can if you want to. You can throw it even. So we're going to have some questions from the audience. Does anybody have any questions? There's a burning question right over there.
Yeah.
Well done, teamwork.
It's good that's not the last row, right?
We can try. In your opinion, what's the ratio between the internal startups that you do in terms of the investment and the actual outcome versus the acquisition of smaller startups? What works better, at least in your case?
I'm not sure whether one works better, but I'll give you some figures. So today we have about 20 initiatives in our accelerating portfolio for long term. And we have 4 which are in a scale-up mode. So went out of it, and 4. One is yours. And maybe out of the 4, maybe 2 might be successful. But we also stopped 10, so you could count, 30 and have 30. So maybe 2 out of 30 might make it through the internal funnel. And externally, when we buy a company like Payvision, and it's a ratio is 1 to 1. But also when we make investments, we have today 20 investments which we made in fintechs, and it's too early to say that they are successful today, right? So I think in a couple of years I can tell you. What I like is just to combine them. So we have made investments in a company like Fintonic in Spain, which is somehow doing similar things as Yolt. But so we're betting on different things, again, because we don't know. And those guys in Spain are doing things which Yolt is not doing. So I'm trying to learn from it. So it's more about diversifying into, and I would go to nail the number of topics you really want to make a difference in, and then have all the different bets possible.
So currently you don't have the numbers yet in terms of what works better from a return on investment perspective yet?
No, because the fintech investments, have not returned. Well, we have invested in 2. Well, I can theoretically work it out because we have made 2 investments in unicorns. Okay, so but it's still paper, right? Until the moment it's done. But yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? There's another person here, and then there's some people over there, and there's somebody in the back as well. Let's start with the person in the back.
The challenge of yes.
No, don't throw at them. There's a microphone already.
My name is Nathalie van Haren. I'm working for AkzoNobel, and I was wondering how you guys manage the exploration phase versus the running business as usual. Does your team also run internal projects, and how do you innovate there?
In exploration?
Yeah, so Alexander talked about the exploration,
yes.
As the new teams that are really trying to do things differently, and you have your operations who also take on projects, which is like buying new systems or like new learning. It doesn't matter, but they are very much still focused in the old way of doing things. And I was wondering how your team supports those teamwork when
Yes,
you do that?
and we see very big differences from country to country, right? And I won't name any country to avoid have any cultural problem. But I think in some countries, and maybe I can say, where we have operations which are smaller, people are more open to change, and they're asking us, please, can us send us a couple of pace coaches, because they see the value of doing it in a faster way. In operations where we are bigger, they say, we can do it ourselves. So I stopped fighting too much against them, because maybe the 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, and I think it's just there. So my recommendation is to focus on people who are really wanting to change, bring those change to reality, show results, and then move to the ones who are not really moving. There is enough space to get things moving, but trying to pick a couple of things where you can make a difference in the short term to show that you bring value. I think eventually we need to speak the language of the organization, and the organization speaks revenue, cost, so you might think lean startup, agile, but they say, what are you talking about, spending money? And they say, no, we're serious guys, right? So showing that you can help them in being more effective. This is what I would do.
Thank you so much, Benoît. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Another applause for Benoît, please.
Thank you. Thanks. Do you want this?
Thank you.